The things I didn't do are the ones at 100% failure rate. They all said that's the stupidest idea. Our writing assistant, encouraging people can become so valuable.
You have to have a why.
I never knew I could be capable of the things I've achieved. Passion causes you to fight harder and longer because there's so much more of you.
The most powerful work comes when we stop trying to control it and start listening to it. Welcome to the Heart of Show Business. I am your host, Alexia Melocchi. I believe in great storytelling and that every successful artist has a deep desire to express something from the heart to create a ripple effect in our society. Hello to all my listeners of the Heart of Show Business. I have a very special guest with me today on Season 8, Episode 2. I can't believe I'm 8 seasons in. But I have with me someone who has lived storytelling at the highest level. He's an acclaimed filmmaker with Oscar nominations, honored with a medal from the Queen Elizabeth of England. It's not just the scale of his success, it's the evolution of his voice. His work lives in a completely different space today. Through photography, he invites us into what feels like visual music, sensory, emotional, almost meditative. His images don't just capture nature, but they reveal it. Welcome to my show, Pen.
Thank you so much, Alexa. I'm excited to chat with you.
I'm so happy to be chatting with you because you've built a career telling stories on a massive scale. So what pulled you towards something so intimate and, dare I say, spiritual in the world of photography?
Well, my folks I was very young, were making short films, went into the movie theaters. The people would just gather around and there was a fascination of it. And I was also taken when they went to the distributors and the movies were being shown in this giant place and on this giant screen. And I fell in love with the magic of it. And I've never lost that sense that I wanted to be involved in casting spells, if one could be in this world with cameras and storytelling. And my mom died when I was 8, and my life went into a very dark place. My father was not a very good custodian of us. He married a woman who was very troubled, and we were put in foster homes for a while, and I know what it's like to be in an orphanage. All that time, I would carry cameras. I was desperate to try and write. I was constantly trying to find a way of evolving my creativity, and being put down by my stepmother and my father. And in some ways, some people are trying to help you when they put you down. Oh, don't have dreams that are above your abilities, then you won't be disappointed. Well, I don't believe in that. I believe that somehow or other one has to fulfill the things they are. And if you can get close to your voice, to your nature, you're more likely to succeed. I left school at 15 after winning the school photography prize, being the lead in the school play, and being able to write some articles for the school magazine. It's never going to get any better. So I left and went to work in photography and managed to photograph the Rolling Stones when I was 17 for the BBC. But a lot of the time, I really felt like I was a failure. I was not David Bailey. I was not the Rolling Stones. I wasn't that kind of success that we saw in England at that time. And I literally fled to Canada thinking I was washed up and old at 19, and found a culture where people were sharing ideas, and kids were 21-year-old people were exchanging cameras and helping each other make movies. And there was the government putting films into the theaters that were short films and paying people to make them. And I'd never seen anything like this. And when you describe me as a success, I want to describe myself as someone who won't quit, but not a success. Because I've got as many failures, and when people say to me, what's your biggest mistake? I say my errors of omission. The things I didn't do are the ones at 100% failure rate. And the things that I tried to do, once in a while, they actually worked. I say, surround yourself with good people. I managed to find a partner, a guy called John Watson, my wingman, and I would bounce my ideas off him, and he was always looking to find ways of getting things done that he believed in. And I think it's really important to choose your allies as a creative person. You're always going to come across the pragmatics and the people you have to sell to at some point. But before you do it, you must deal with the people who are there to help you push through the pain of giving birth and understand spiritually what your goals are and try and guide you to the best version of what you're trying to achieve, and not tell you that won't sell or that's not the right idea. Because ideas are so ephemeral at the beginning. And you don't shout at little children who can't walk yet. I'd had a son with my wife, and we'd had an emergency cesarean giving birth to him. I wanted to make a movie where helping people, altruistic heroism. And I pitched my Robin Hood with an Arab as a Muslim partner to 3 studios. And they all said, that's the stupidest idea. And our writing assistant, I think it's a wonderful idea. If there's anything I can help you do. And it was because that person suggested it, I started writing it on spec. And that exists without that encouragement. So encouraging people can become so valuable. And that movie ended up one of the biggest movies of the year, one of the biggest movies. My partner John and I got to produce it, got to work with Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman and Alan Rickman. I saw killing people as being regressive. And here I wanted to make a statement where a rich son illustrates for us that it can become the person who's willing to die for his peasants' futures, his children and their children. And that's what I see when I look at my Robin Hood. But we wrap it all up in adventure and fun and entertainment, but inside is a purpose.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I love it because your why is so clear. And I always say to filmmakers and creatives, you have to have a why. It's not just about making the next commercial thing or what the audience wants or what you feel the market or the studios are going to say yes to. Your why has to come through as you're pitching it in the room. As you said, you had a very strong why. Was it a familiar story? Yes, it was. Of course, everybody knows the tale of Robin Hood, but you had a very clear why and a very clear purpose as to why you wanted to tell the story your way, on your own timing.
That's one film noticed by a gentleman called Norman Jewison, who did Russians Are Coming, The Heat of the Night, Oscar nominations for, and his movies always had a why. And when we first came here, I didn't think I was good enough to write screenplays. I thought the Hollywood people knew how to write, and that I was just this church mouse that had been invited in by Norman. And I realized he could see in film potential that I didn't know I had. And that's something I want to share with people, because I never knew I could be capable of the things I've achieved. They came out of me out of fear sometimes, and you still struggle to get them out of you, and you fight to do it. But when they do, there is much more in you if you're pursuing your passion. And I learned that the scripts I wrote for myself, like Robin Hood, which I wrote on spec, no one paid me. I wrote a script called Mull Flanders, which was the most powerful emotional experience I've ever had in my life. And it was a script that I knew spiritually was in me after I wrote Robin Hood, because there was a gut instinct, literally I liken it to a story sausage in my gut, that I was going to write this woman's historical adventure, and it was going to be one of the most important emotional events of my life. And I searched for the opening of why and how, and it took a year before it suddenly came out of me. And when it did come out of me, it was like an emotional gusher. I wrote the thing in passion and joy. I didn't tell my male partners I was writing a script, because I knew with the best will in the world, they were trying to tell me not to do it. It's a historical movie. It's never going to get made. How do you know you can even write a woman? So I didn't ask them their permission. I just wrote it in secret while doing my other work. And I call the scripts that I've written that way life scripts.
Oh,
And they come out of me, and they come out of other people, I think. And that's your voice. And that's the thing that passion causes you to fight harder and longer, because there's so much more of you. And the message in it was because I'd had a daughter, and I wanted to write a story about a woman who was flawed and made mistakes, but never lost her daughter's love. And there's a birth scene in that movie, as there is a birth scene in Robin Hood, and I cry when I see it, because metaphorically it's our daughter being born. And in Robin Hood, there's an emergency cesarean where Morgan Freeman's character helps to give the chief of the woodsman's wife get her baby out of her using a cesarean, which the Arabs knew how to do. And our son was born with an emergency cesarean. And it was the first scene that the director didn't want to shoot. And I begged Kevin Costner to get it shot, because I felt, even though we were writing an adventure, putting a child on the screen demonstrated what the woodsmen were fighting for, their futures. And,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the passion to fight for it or to ask for Costa to go make sure he got shot unless it was incredibly meaningful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said. And I think, I think that the thread that I'm getting from you as to the theme of your creativity and your pursuits, that you call them life pursuits and not just creative pursuit, I think it has to do with the curiosity. And I think everybody has to stay curious in life, whether it is, curious about other people, curious about themselves, which is so important because that's how, in the art of contemplation, that's when we get to know ourselves better. And like you said, the voice comes through, which brings me to your photography, because I obviously you've been photographing nature in this last book, and I want to ask you, do you believe that nature holds emotional truths that we have forgotten how to access, and does it have to do anything with your desire maybe to contemplate on that a little more?
I think again, you're touching something that's wonderful to explore. We forget who we are, and so we and forget what we're surrounded with is the beauty of life, the magic and mystery of it. And when I say I want to cast spells, I want to give people an opportunity to feel themselves alive through the images that I make. And I'm saying that I'm taking images where it's what nature feels like and not what it looks like, because I've forced myself to break free of the dogmas of photography, which were the best one in the world, teaching me how to take good photographs, which were copies of what other people had done. We're
Mm,
constantly being taught, what's a good performance? Well, it's we're using illustrations of other people's performances as opposed to expecting us to create something from that music inside us. And
yeah,
your statement about your curiosity, what fires you up, why have you done all these podcasts, and that drive it's important to help bring it out of you because again, we don't know where we're going, but we have a certainty that there's something there, and
yeah.
that imprecision isn't supported by the education system. When we're
No,
raised, we're not told,
no.
"Hey, you're going to have dreams, and they're not going to be too easy to get to." But if you keep trying, and they'll get there. We're taught, "No, this guy walked into this room and he sold this project, but he invented the telephone, and if you can't do that in one step, you're not going to succeed." And so, part of my process in trying to give back because of what Norman Jewison did to me and changing my life is to also try and share how I found ways to overcome self-doubt and to encourage people to discover what's in them that they don't know is there yet, but they have instincts that it should be, which
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
imprecision of creativity. And my
yeah.
photography, I take more sustenance from abstract painting, Monet, Jackson, Turner, inside you. They're in your genes. You don't even know they're there because everybody's taught you that. And letting go, you feel this is stupid, this is foolish. And then after a while, it was because I saw my daughter using my cameras when I would sort of put them aside and was just concentrating on filming. And no one had taught her anything. And photographs were naive and poetic and weren't focused
Mm,
on same normal places. And there was mystery and poetry to them. And I said, I've been doing this wrong. I got to stop saying what's right, what if. And that journey has brought me immense pleasure. I'm taking images that I can't believe that I'm capable of. I'm still doubting that I go out every time with the camera, uncertain. But what I do is I say, what does my body want to do? And sometimes it wants to
mm.
make trees dance by moving the camera during the photography. Sometimes it wants to chase a koi across the stream by moving the camera with it, taking a long exposure. And it looks like streaks of joy, what you've never seen before to discover its beauty. Because along the way you say, well, this is really stupid. And no one's ever going to want to see this stuff. But the idea of casting spells for me is still in me, even from being a child.
Oh, words and images. Oh, the words have power, images has power. And many times we do not know that we are casting spells without knowing. We're all magicians. People think magic is, but like you said, magic is in the simplest things. in showing an image that is going to touch someone, in saying a word of encouragement that is going to change someone else's life trajectory. I know that we spoke about this when we were like not recording, but you like me, you want to give back. You had written a book called Riding the Alligator, which I presume was about screenwriting and the process of creativity. And then after that, you went on to write a simple book that you want to give away to the creatives. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, Riding the Alligator was the book I wanted to read as a screenwriter, but I also wanted to try and help people understand the complexity of being a creative person and the imprecision of being creative. If it's coming out of you, out of your genes, if it's coming out of your zeitgeist, if it's coming out of your cultural existence, that's your voice and that's your nature.
Yeah.
And how you get it. Both my, I've got a coffee table book that's in the form of a PDF of my work called qualia. And qualia is a philosophical term for things that can't be described in words. And that was what I wanted my photographs to be, so that you as a viewer could feel like a Rorschach test almost. How does nature impact you when you see it through fresh ways of it being experienced? And qualia seemed to be the way to do that. So at pendenshamphotography.com, there's a section in there called books, and both of those books are downloadable for free. My joy would be that if they help you discover your own creativity or encourage you to take risks, and also to be patient with yourself, not to put deadlines on, because just waiting a year to discover if a story would come out of me is normal. And making films is luck more than success. I've got some beautiful scripts that will never get made, and they're heartfelt and they're full of passion. In selling, one actually has to put as much effort into selling what you create. But really what you're doing is selling them something new, but putting handles on it so that they know how to pick it up.
Yeah, no, that is so true. Don't do this just for the money. I mean, know that it is a business. Pen, I have one last question for you before we get to the quiz, because this is important. Whether it's film or photography or writing, what do you think makes art timeless?
Well, I think, biology. Stories were built into us because we evolved to share communication with each other. Tribes of human beings needed to be cohesive so that we could get our young into the future. Tribes then needed storytelling because storytelling made morality normal. And if you can't raise your children in an immoral society, because everybody would steal from you, no one would have a future. So the beauty of human beings is they're mostly moral, where the problem is that some people then pretend that the other people are immoral and it's moral to attack them. And we have to somehow try and fix that.
Yeah, that is so true. I always say, the word open and hopeful, I think, would be the things that everybody needs now.
That would be so difficult for me because I'm usually quite verbose. 3 words. Oh my gosh. I think that's what keeps me going. Because the possibilities are out there. Even putting my photography out, I've no idea where it's going. I don't quite know why I'm putting it out. An instinctual thing is I must share it, which is why I want to give away the book. And no one knows that I'm here. I'm like Van Gogh, and I think that would be a waste of the effort and the energy. So I want to see if people find something in it that they can enjoy. What was the other question that I should focus on?
Life mantra. If you have a life mantra, any something, somebody's quote, somebody's sentence, something you created yourself or you tell yourself in moments of challenge or
Gosh, that's so interesting. There's this. When I made my movie Houdini, it was about a husband and wife, and he was constantly looking for adulation by doing these very dangerous things. And I wrote a line for his wife which said, "Harry, I could clap till my hands bled before it would be enough for you. And even though I'm on these journeys and they're selfish in some ways, I must also make sure that I'm serving those people, because without them, I wouldn't have the freedom to do this." And I jokingly say she kept me, because she's been through starting off a company, no money, no funds, holes in our shoes, trying to get money, begging for funds, and coming to Hollywood, giving up her family and, leaving behind things. She's been an immense supporter. I don't think it's easy to do this alone. I know there's some people that are very capable of doing it. I like having allies. My wife doesn't support me in the same way that my business partner, John Watson, did. Different skill sets. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to try and be decent and supportive of other people and to give back and to make sure that one appreciates the people that they're around you. I'm looking forward to going shopping with my daughter in a couple of days because it's spring break, and it's
Oh,
magic there. There's a magic in just spending time with someone you love.
so true, so true. And you know what? I actually just recently lived that because my mother was hospitalized and she had life-saving surgery. She's doing well, God bless her little heart. But you know what
Right.
because for me, it was about the exploration of what is possible. A little bit like you, the exploration of hope. So instead of going, is it possible, like always in the negative, because that's what we tend to do. It's possible that this person will say no. It's possible this loved one could die. It's possible. It's all like in the negative. I said, what if I try to spin it around? And I just looked at, and I think what I love about this conversation, Pen, is that I feel it challenges the idea that creativity, we feel it has a final destination, but it just does not. It is evolving. And sometimes the most powerful work comes when we stop trying to control it and start listening to it. And it seems that's exactly what you're doing, which is I am so happy and so blessed you came on my podcast. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Well, no, thank you for telling me I'm a similar path to you. That normalizes it. We'll keep going. We'll both go overcome our self-doubt and keep leaping forward and hoping there's something to land on when we get there.
No, we will. And of course, for everybody who's curious about Pen, you can access on his website, you can access his beautiful work of art, you can access his books, you can go see his movies, because as we say, oldies but goodies, the best movies were not done in the last 3 years. They were done a little earlier than that. We're not going to go dish on the industry right now, but it's a confused. Let's call it out. So I think we made movies, so you made movies in a time where the industry was a little bit less confused. And so we need to keep supporting and watching this type of films and hopefully bringing out filmmakers to continue doing this type of films that have a purpose, that have a voice.
I think we will, because I don't think mankind changes. It'll
Yeah.
just always be, we just need to keep the emphasis on the kind part of man and not the mankind, because human beings need stories to learn how to love, to learn how to, how to escape creatures, Jaws, Jurassic, Alien. We're not going to stop telling each other stories because we can't grow, we can't change, we can't learn without the parables and the myths and the legends. So yeah, it's going to keep going, and only the culture and the time and the clothing will change.
No, you're right. And we're all craving connection right now, which, in the darkness, that's
Yes.
when we all come together the most. And I think that's why it's important that you and I keep on doing what we're doing and hopefully keep the lights on while we are also trying to do what we do. And again, thank you for coming. For everybody listening, if you've enjoyed this specific episode, please subscribe, share, review. Again, I don't care if I ever make money on this, but I do want this to go out far and wide. And so if you want to support me and support Pen in our endeavor to be storytellers and championing storytellers, please do so. This is Alexia Malocchi of the Heart of Show Business. Over and out. And as we say in Italy, ciao.